Good evening. This is Intermission, November 18th, 2020. I am your host, Calvin Cassidy, coming to you from Carl Junction, Missouri. Title of tonight's show is Unraveled, and that's kind of what I am, and that's kind of the way I've been for the last few days. Let me tell you just a little bit about what's happened. Remember, the first part of this show is completely unscripted, and it's unstructured. So hold on, here we go. Who knows where we're going to end up. Last Thursday, I usually take the day off after the Wednesday program, so I did. And on Friday, I started gathering stuff together for today's show. And then on Friday evening, I attended a memorial service for a friend of mine who had passed from COVID a couple of weeks ago. And that was an experience where I was there, but I wasn't sure what I was there for. I, paid my respects to my loved one, and paid my respects for my wife who had to work, and then observed. And it was difficult. I mean, this is the first COVID funeral I'd been to since back in March, and I'll mention that a little bit more in a second. But it wasn't regular. It wasn't normal. People were grieving in a different kind of way. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that when our loved ones die of COVID, they die alone. And we never know. We never experience those last words, those last minutes, that opportunity to say goodbye. So we're kind of gathered together and as a unit, and but it's way different. And when I left that night, I was deeply troubled about the whole thing. And on Saturday morning, before I could even start to work on today's program, I got a phone call that told me that another dear friend had passed from COVID. I'd been praying for this friend for several weeks, and his wife also had COVID. And all of a sudden, the face of COVID became more real. This was the third person that I'd watched suffer alone and be taken by this silent killer. And to the families, I offer, especially having come from a situation where there was suffering. We're getting ready to celebrate another life on Friday. So now, COVID-19 has a face. It has a face. A friend of mine that I work with, Geneva, passed exactly, and we celebrated her life exactly 1 week after President Trump declared the national health emergency. Things were different back then, and soon after that, funerals were pretty much shut down. And I hadn't been to another until Friday passed. So the experience was shocking. It truly was. And it's shocking that that we behave the way we do in this time of, it is indeed a natural crisis, a natural disaster in sorts. We've been trained, and in this part of the country, we've lived through devastating tornadoes, but we've always done what we needed to do to fix the problem. This whole situation makes me angry. When you put a face to COVID, a face of a loved one, it does. Because you turn to Facebook, you look at polls, you look at TV, and you still hear these people that are arguing that COVID is not real. I hate it when I hear the word that it's a hoax. When you know people are dying, and we know that your friends are dying, it gives you a whole new perspective. What is the big deal about wearing a mask? If it's going to save the lives of your family and those loved ones, we don't need any more funerals. Today, earlier this morning, the 250,000th person passed from COVID. That's 250,000 people. Is that a hoax? No, that's real. Millions of people are suffering from the virus. Many have recovered, yes, but is that a permanent recovery? Are going to be reoccurring illnesses? Are there damage to organs and things that are going to cause them trouble for the rest of their lives? We don't even know. So put that face on, and it'll make a whole lot of difference for how you look at things. I never did get into the mood to prepare for today's show. It's kind of been a roadblock, and I'm kind of glad to get on with it. Last night, I've been working since Saturday to try to make sense. My head was full of ideas. I felt like it was about to explode, but I couldn't get anything down on paper. Nothing would fit together. I like things to fit together. I like things to come together in the end and be a nice, neat package. And I prayed about this, and this is the show that is a result of that. Again, on Friday, I'll be celebrating another life of somebody who gave their life for this disease. And I'll be with a family of grieving people that are holding each other up and wishing they'd had a chance to say that final goodbye. We'll get to that a little bit later on, I hope. Here's some facts that we need to think about this Thanksgiving season. And let me tell you something else. As I was researching, and this was going to be a predominantly Thanksgiving program, as I was researching this, I came about a quote, and it even set me off more. The quote was, "What is the value of Thanksgiving as a religious holiday?" Well, let's just look at what's going on in the world. Like I just mentioned, 250,000 people have died from a pandemic, which there is right now no control of. We're getting closer, and that's something we need to be thankful for. That's something we need to pray about. Millions of people are suffering from the disease right now. It's affecting millions of families. It's affecting the way we do life, one day at a time. We need for our communities, we have needs for our communities, we have needs for the nation, and we have needs for the world. Progress in this area will only come about when the needs of others become equally important to our own needs. Right now, we have 24 million people coming up that are food insecure, meaning they don't know where their next meal's coming from. Think about that. What if we could do something to help in that situation? There are thousands on the verge of eviction. They're going to lose their home. And even if they have their home, they can't pay the utilities. They can't eat. They can't get electricity. They might not even have a roof over their head. What's the value of a religious Thanksgiving? Let's go on. Mortgage debt is an all-time high. People are buying houses, but are they going to be able to afford them? People are spending money on all kinds of things, on Christmas gifts, on new cars, on anything you can think of. It's record credit debt at all-time high again. But let's look at the rest of the picture. Businesses are going under, even the big businesses, and that means more layoffs. United Airlines, for example, the Disney Corporation has laid off thousands of people. And then you have unemployment. Take that unemployment, factor that in with the high mortgage debt, the high credit debt. You're going to have more people that are going to be hurting every day. And once again, the COVID rages on. Cases in the million, deaths 250,000. And what else is that affecting? It's affecting our education. It's affecting our parents. It's affecting our school workers as they try to balance the education of our nation's youth. It affects those people. I read something yesterday where a parent was complaining about having to stay home and take care of their kids. Well, folks, I'm a parent, and I know lots of parents. And if you care about your kids, you'll figure out how to make it work. That's no excuse. On the other hand, you've got to remember that the teachers are doing everything they can, whether it be virtual, whether it be in the classroom, and they're risking their lives. And I always like to think when I read something about a parent that's disgruntled, and I'm thinking, are they saying my life's more important than yours? Because it's not. Teachers are giving it all. Students who attend class are taking risks. And yes, they do become infected. And they do die. Two of my grandsons have been quarantined. My daughter's been quarantined. Hopefully, they won't get the virus. So far, so good. But it's a possibility. It's something they have to face every day. And then, let's look at our healthcare workers. You see them on TV all the time, totally exhausted, but few are complaining. Most are happy that they took an oath to do no harm and to serve the public. But many of them get the disease, and many of them die. Is it a hoax? I don't think so. Yet, do they get the attention that they need? Do they get the supplies that they need? We're working on a vaccine. That'll help. But that's no excuse to become, to give it up. This is another story. You see, this is coming right off the top of my head. Yesterday on the news, a local county who has fairly lax and fights the mask ordinance, the council decided that they would purchase a mobile morgue to take care of the dead. What is that telling the people? We'd rather handle the results of the problem rather than try to solve the problem. That makes me angry. And that's not all we have to deal with. We have those recovering from fires on the West Coast and the upper western states. We have firemen that have lost their lives. We have people that have lost their lives. We have people that have lost their homes and basically their reality. We also have people on the coast that are still recovering from hurricanes, and the hurricanes may not have even stopped yet. They kind of take the back news to the president-elect, which we now have. We now have a president-elect. Has that cleared anything up? No. Remember what I said. Before we can heal, before we can help others, we have to accept the fact that the needs of others are just as important as our own needs. So we have the hurricane victims. But what about the regular, normal problems that this country goes through? We have other health issues that were some reaching pretty dire needs before all this. What about our cancer patients, our diabetes patients, our heart disease, and other illnesses that may be taking a back seat to this COVID crisis? And now let's take a quick look at how we're going to handle our Thanksgiving. We're going to have more on this next week. And some of it was going to be this week, but I'm off and running, so let's continue. Our celebrations it's suggested that we be reduced to families. Then there are choices. How much of our families are we going to include? And all kinds of things that we need to do to prepare. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. And then what happens after dinner? First of all, most dinners are going to be at home because most restaurants are closed or carry out only. There are no movies to go to after dinner. Football is adjusted as to who's sick and who's well. and the traditional game may not be on because those people may not be well enough to play. And what was the other big Thanksgiving project? Shopping. That's can be done still, but you're going to do it online because it's a lot safer. We're going to have to simplify our holidays and our celebrations. We've got to start looking out for our brothers. Food drives is a great way to participate. Last week, my wife and I participated in a drive that was organized by a good friend of ours, and they collected 300 food boxes in about 3 weeks, maybe just 2 weeks. That we calculated that would feed about 1,500 people more than one meal a day. So that's a great effort. Other efforts can be made. We have to build our communities and our neighborhoods. We have to work through our churches and through our organizations. But we can only make a difference when we make the needs of others the same as ours. We're going to switch down a little bit and talk about some things that were scripted for national days. Today is Mickey and Minnie Mouse's birthday. And I really wanted to focus in a little bit about that because Walt Disney, of course, is the king of dreams and imaginations. And sometimes when we get down like we're down now, we need those kind of things. Today is actually also National Princess Day. And I imagine we all have princesses in our family. Tomorrow will be the Great American Smokeout, a very important day. And International Men's Day, the 20th, Future Teachers of America Day, and Universal Children's Day. And the 21st is National Stuffing Day. Very appropriate for the time of the year. And World Television Day. What would we do without it? On the 22nd, it will be the anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. What's going on outside? The nature scene today, you'll begin to notice birds coming to your feeders. If you haven't got them cleaned and you don't have your feed, it's the time now. Around here, it's warm, but the cold weather's coming. I checked the fur on my cats, and it's just getting furrier and furrier, and I'm figuring that means we're going to have some cold days, so you want to get your feeders up, get them clean, get them filled, and you can enjoy a very entertaining winter watching the birds, and they will appreciate the food you put out for them. If you're walking in the woods, you might notice the nests of the brown-faced hornets. Hornet's nest high in a tree. You'll know it if you see it. You can start collecting pecans now as they're falling from the trees, and that's another good thing because, it's that time of the year for pecan pie. And tonight, don't forget to watch the sky as a Leonid meteor shower continues and it's about to reach its peak. Got to tell you, the last 2 nights, I've woke up about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, looked out my big windows for several minutes, and never saw a single meteor, but I'm not real patient in the middle of the night. We're going to move on back to a serious note now. I want to tell you about some personal experiences and how they relate to the needs of today. I want to begin by reciting the 23rd Psalm. That means a lot to me, and I'm going to explain why. 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. When I saw the light back in 1971, I was 19 years old. I walked through that valley of the shadow of death. I had no fear. God comforted me. He supported me, and he took me in. He allowed me a quick glimpse of heaven, a sight that can't even be described in words. Beauty, tranquility, and peace, and a covenant with God that on my return to earth, I would share that snapshot of heaven with all in need. Folks, the need is great right now. To all families who have lost loved ones, who passed alone, and you didn't get to say goodbye, rest easy. God escorted them across that valley of the shadow of death. He comforted them, and he supported them, and he welcomed them to a place that can't be described in words. And goodness and mercy will follow them, and they will live in the house of the Lord forever. I want to close today's program with a prayer from the Book of Common Prayer. O merciful Father, who hath taught us in thy holy word that thou dost not willingly afflict or grieve the children of man, look with pity upon the sorrows of thy servants for whom we pray, for all the COVID victims and for all the victims that resulted in our loved ones crossing over, passing on. Remember them, O Lord, in mercy. Nourish their souls with patience. Comfort them with a sense of thy goodness. Lift up thy countenance upon them and give them peace through Jesus Christ our Lord. Folks, we made it to the end. Today, intermission is over, and it's time to get on with your life. Good evening.